Now, and we are exploring new research linking GLP-1 medications like Ozempic and Wegovy, not just to weight loss and diabetes management, but to a potential reduction in cancer risk. There's been an 8-year study, and it's found that these drugs may lower the risk of severely obesity related, or several, I should say, obesity related cancers with inflammation, with obesity, there's an increased cancer risk. So the thought is if you reduce the inflammation, you reduce the obesity, you reduce the cancer risk. Joining us to unpack the findings, Dr. Pete Sulack, who's a leading expert in integrative health and wellness, and he'll help us understand what the research means and what questions still remain. Good morning, Dr. Sulack. Good to have you with us.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
You bet.
So,
Yeah, please let's talk about these are the GLP-1s, right? The semaglutides and whatnot. What is the direct link? Is it because of the reduction in inflammation and obesity, or is it a separate chemical reaction? Do we know?
I think when you look at glucose and blood sugar, when you look at inflammation, when you look at insulin, they're all contributing factors in regards to the lower cancer risk for endometrial, ovarian, and brain cancers. As a brain cancer survivor myself, it's very, very promising. Anything that we can do, just really from just the idea that cancer doesn't have to be random, that we can actually change our risk factors, and is very encouraging to me.
Yeah, I know over the years they've studied certainly glucose and sugars and how sugar feeds tumors and things like that. And also, uh, I know there have been studies about the acidity and alkalinity of the blood, et cetera. So I'm sure all of that was probably taken into
Yeah.
account. In this case, the cancer risk reduction again, do we think it is directly linked to the weight loss aspect? You understand, or I mean, of course, you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
To clarify it for us, because I am not a doctor, but I will say this: I used to be 400 pounds, as you
Hmm.
were a brain cancer survivor. God bless you. And I did a gastric bypass surgery, and I am on semaglutide because my blood sugar was a little unstable. It has done wonders to stabilize my blood sugar. So I'm just wondering if there is the effect then of cancer suppression or prevention based on what we found.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at metabolism in general, metabolism is the body's ability to take food, convert it through the mitochondria of your cell, and create energy, ATP, and metabolites for life. And so anything that we can do to just really affect metabolism and just the mitochondria, when it comes to sugar, when it comes to inflammation, when it comes to insulin, all of those things are going to be contributing factors. When it comes to weight loss, I think one of those things is inflammation and sugar. So just by someone lowering their weight and maintaining a normal metabolism, I think that's a huge contributing factor. But I think it's also blood sugar. Cancer loves to feed on sugar
Mm.
and glucose. It needs inflammation, it needs insulin. And so all of those are just very just contributing factors, but very promising. The study really, for me, it allows us to know that cancer is not just random. It's not just based on our genes. Like, we can actually play a role in metabolism, in metabolic health, and really our cancer risk.
Yeah, I remember seeing a documentary on the toxicity of sugar. And when you look at population food consumption over the centuries and how you can look at the direct spike in death from cancer when you look at the processed foods and the high sugar foods,
Yeah.
when populations started eating massive amounts of sugar, working less, becoming more sedentary, you could see the direct correlation, right, to spikes in cancer.
No, absolutely. And I think that's what people don't realize. I think a lot of people think that food isn't medicine, but food is truly medicine. And it's either going to starve cancer or it's going to fuel it. And we want to do everything we can to establish the terrain of the body in such a way that cancer is just no longer hospitable. And so this study is very, very promising when it comes to GLP-1 drugs. But for me, it's, hey, we are contributors in metabolic health. And I think too, looking at just say, what are the things that we can do to empower ourselves? And for me, my life was on the line. I had a 1% chance to still be alive in 8 months, according to doctors. And
Wow.
so for me, it was, what am I going to do to establish my diet, my supplementation, detoxification, oxygenation? And then really, for me, it was faith.
That's amazing. In fact, there's a veterinarian who I was following a couple of years ago. So I had a dog who had cancer at perfectly healthy, and then all of a sudden developed a
Yeah.
strange cancer in the middle of his femur. And So this doctor swore in his research, he was a biologist before he became a veterinarian, and he swore that if you give your dog at that point just a sugar-free, low carb diet, that you will starve tumors. We tried it. I think it extended the dog's life. But there's clearly this is something that's coming to light now. So would you advise patients and their oncologists, et cetera, to really give a serious look into as you're talking about diet, cutting out sugars, especially if there's any detection of cancer cells? I mean, what do they have to lose to cut out sugars from their diet? And then potentially incorporating GLP drugs into any potential cancer treatment.
I think the biggest thing for me is, for diabetes, for weight, and so forth, GLP-1s are great. I think obviously we're seeing the new studies when it comes to cancer. I think for me, knowing that every medication will have a side effect, if you look at some of the things that are coming out on the thyroid, on the gallbladder, on the pancreas, on even kidney cancer, I think for me, if we can just establish the train of the body and lower glucose and really begin to personalize our diet, supplementation, cancer is so adaptable. So if it's not going to go after glucose, it's going to try to go after glutamine. But there's certain things that we can do just naturally to really just establish the train of our body and make cancer really no longer hospitable to the environment that we live in.
Amen to that. We could do hours on this, doctor. Please promise me you can come back on it because we need more time to talk about this. This is just not
I would
enough
be
time.
honored to. Yeah, thank
Please,
you very
thank you so
much.
much. He is a leading expert in integrative health and wellness, Dr. Pete Sulack. Thank you for joining us today. Brilliant, and that says it all. And God bless him for kicking. Imagine he only had a 1% chance of survival, and he kicked brain cancer. May you live 100 years, sir.